AITA for refusing to take my parents back after they kicked me out for my golden child sister? I was 18. I was getting ready to start college, and suddenly I found myself with nowhere to go. All because of Ashley, the golden child who always managed to make me look like I was worth almost nothing in comparison. Ashley is 4 years older than me, and ever since we were kids, it was obvious she was the favorite. Not just a little bit, either. My parents were literally obsessed with her. If she got an A, they practically threw her a parade. But if I got an A, it was like, oh, cool. What's for dinner tonight? You get the idea. So, I grew up with the impression that whatever I did, Ashley would always outshine me. When she went off to a top business school, my parents were over the moon, as if she were a prodigy. They paid for everything. Her tuition, her apartment, her designer clothes. Meanwhile, I kept my head down and realized I would have to fend for myself. So when I got accepted into a prestigious university in the UK to study history, I told myself that maybe, just maybe, I would get a little support, but no, nothing at all. My parents clearly told me they couldn't pay my tuition. Okay, I get it, college is expensive, but what really made me angry was that they wouldn't even co-sign a student loan. I wasn't asking them to pay for everything, just to help me a little so I wouldn't be condemned to drowning in debt my whole life. But they refused, and we argued a lot about it. Their reasoning? We already paid for Ashley's education. We have to think about our retirement now. Plus, at that time, they were planning to launch a small boutique. So apparently, all their savings were going into that. I was completely stuck. I didn't want to miss the chance to go to this university, but I felt like my parents were doing everything to sabotage me. They had no problem spending fortunes on Ashley. But for me, suddenly, they had to be prudent and thrifty. I needed help, and it was becoming obvious they wouldn't give it to me. So, with no other solution, I turned to my Aunt Carol. Carol is my father's older sister, and frankly, she is the total opposite of my parents. She is a neurosurgeon and honestly much more successful than them, but she remains super simple and down to earth. My parents always had a weird tension with her. They were polite at family gatherings, but I could see they were bitter about her success. My father, in particular, hated feeling overshadowed by her. I didn't want to get her too involved in this at first, but I was desperate. One day, I contacted her to ask if she would agree to help me with my college fees. She didn't even hesitate. She said, "Of course I'll help you. Why didn't you come see me sooner?" But I was terrified at the idea of my father finding out. If he knew I had gone to ask his sister for money behind his back, he would have exploded. So, I begged Carol to keep it a secret. Everything was going well for a while. I thought it was settled. My tuition was covered, and I was getting ready to leave to study. That's when Ashley decided to destroy everything. To this day, I still don't know how she found out I had asked Aunt Carol for help, but she knew, and since it was Ashley, she couldn't just let it slide. She had to make a monumental drama out of it. One evening, I came home after going out with friends and immediately felt something was wrong. All my things were packed in boxes, everything. My clothes, my books, even my bed sheets. My parents were sitting in the living room, and Ashley was standing there with this smug, satisfied look plastered on her face. I felt like I was walking into some kind of twisted intervention. My father didn't waste a second. He shoved a stack of papers at me, saying, "Explain this." I had no idea what he was talking about. So, I looked at the papers. And then, I understood. Ashley had totally snapped. She had fabricated fake emails between me and my Aunt Carol that made it look like I was betraying the family by divulging confidential details about the business my parents planned to launch in exchange for the payment of my tuition. I couldn't believe my eyes. Ashley had snooped on my laptop, found my real emails with Carol, then doctored them with some editing software. She made it look like I had sold out our family. I was in shock. I tried to explain that this was all fake, but my parents didn't even listen to me. They just repeated, "We trusted you and you stabbed us in the back." It didn't matter what I said. They believed Ashley. Obviously, they always believed her. It was like I didn't exist anymore. They told me to take my things and leave immediately. I was officially kicked out of my home because of a complete lie. I begged them to reconsider. I didn't want to be a burden on Carol, especially after she had already agreed to pay for my studies. But my parents didn't care. They said I was a traitor and they wanted nothing more to do with me. So there, I left with only the clothes I was wearing and a few boxes, and I moved in with my Aunt Carol. Honestly, I don't know how I would have survived without her. She took me in without hesitation and treated me like real family, which I hadn't felt in years. While my parents were busy idolizing Ashley and focusing on their future business, Carol was the only one who really cared about me, and for that, I will always be grateful. But even today, I can't forget that evening, coming home, seeing all my things packed, my parents looking at me like I was a criminal, and Ashley with that smug smile, knowing she had won. That's how I found myself kicked out of my own house, standing on Carol's doorstep with my life packed in boxes. I was still trying to understand what had just happened to me. It was like a bad dream. How can you go from a family member to being without a home in a single night? It all seemed so unreal. But at the same time, I couldn't say I was surprised. My parents had always shown that Ashley came first, but I never thought they would go this far. Carol, being the angel she is, welcomed me with open arms. She didn't ask me 1,000 questions. She didn't insist. She just saw that I was broken and told me her house was mine for as long as necessary. That kindness, my God, it hit me right in the heart because I realized at that moment that I had never felt anything so close coming from my own parents. So, I moved in with her. It was weird at first waking up in her guest room, looking around a house that wasn't mine. But over time, it started to feel more like a home than the place where I grew up. We started to get closer, talking about everything and nothing. It turns out Aunt Carol knew way more about my parents and their nonsense than I ever imagined. She had kept her distance from them for years, only coming to family gatherings out of obligation. And one day, she revealed something to me that completely blew my mind. Apparently, my father's grudge against her had started well before I was born. Carol had always been more successful. She got into medical school, married a wonderful man who sadly passed away young, and lived her life. Meanwhile, my father got by okay, but every time they met up, he became strangely competitive. Carol told me their relationship had become a sort of competition to know who would give the family the best image. But instead of being proud of his sister, my father resented her for it, and it wasn't just related to her career. My father felt overshadowed on every level, financially, socially, basically everything. I guess that jealousy ended up reverberating on the way he treated me. Carol had understood all of this for years, but she kept quiet so as not to make things worse for me. Now that I was living with her, she told me everything. It was like she was trying to fill in all the gray areas of my life, the ones I had never been able to understand before. Why did my parents never seem to care about what I did? Why did they always bend over backward for Ashley? It all came down to a twisted family dynamic I wasn't even aware of. Living at Carol's was great, but I couldn't completely relax. I was always waiting for my parents to call, for Ashley to show up out of nowhere, or for them to apologize for what they had done. But of course, that never happened. Days turned into weeks and nothing, not a single message, not a single call. At first, I was angry, really angry, like I was nothing. Then the anger eventually faded, replaced by a sort of numbness. It was as if my brain had switched off my emotions just so I could keep moving forward. Carol, she was incredible. She never forced me to talk about what happened if I didn't want to. She let me take the time to rebuild myself. She even helped me prepare everything for college, making sure I had everything I needed before leaving for the UK. I swear, without her, I don't know how I would have gotten through that period. But despite all her support, my parents' silence was deafening. You tell yourself that after kicking your child out, you would at least check if he's okay. But no, I suppose I shouldn't have expected anything else, but I still hoped. One afternoon, about a month after this whole story, I received a text from Ashley. I remember it like it was yesterday because it was as annoying as she is. The message simply said, "Hope you're good. By the way, you should probably password protect your laptop." That was all. No apologies, not the slightest acknowledgement of what she had done. Just a little provocation in text form to remind me that it was she who got me thrown out. I stared at the screen, feeling my blood boil. She was simply taunting me. I didn't answer. What was the point? Ashley wasn't the type to feel guilty about anything. In her head, she had won some sort of weird family game, and that was that. I thought about replying with a scathing remark, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. She would have only gotten more pleasure out of it. So, I blocked her number and tried to move on. Not easy. Every time I looked at my phone, a part of me still hoped to receive a message from my parents. Maybe a word from my mother, saying she regretted everything, or even a passive-aggressive email from my father pretending nothing had happened. But no, radio silence. In the months that followed, Carol and I found a solid routine. She became more than an aunt. She became my confidant, my friend, and basically the only family I had left. I started to see how twisted my parents were. They had spent so much time focusing on Ashley, trying to transform her into the perfect daughter, that they had missed out on everything else. And when Ashley would eventually crash, which would inevitably happen one day, it would be too late for them to fix things. Around the time I was getting ready to leave for college, I received another message, this time from my father. It was short and direct. Good luck in the UK. That was all. No apology, no explanation, nothing. It felt like a slap in the face. After all that, all he had to say was good luck. I didn't even know what to reply. So I didn't. I just deleted the message and tried not to think about it anymore. The day of my departure for the UK, Carol drove me to the airport. She hugged me and told me how proud she was of me, that she knew I was going to accomplish great things. It was the first time in my life someone in my family said those words to me, and it overwhelmed me more than I would have thought. I got on that plane with the feeling of leaving behind more than my house. I was leaving behind that part of me that had always sought my parents' approval. From that moment on, I decided I didn't need them anymore. I had Carol, I had my future, and I had myself. If they wanted to contact me again, fine. But I wasn't going to waste energy chasing after people who clearly didn't care about me. It was over. So, my life in the UK was going super well. I settled into the university, made friends, and for the first time in years, I wasn't obsessed with my family anymore. I wouldn't say I had forgotten them. I think that's impossible, but they weren't constantly on my mind anymore. I focused on my studies, on my future, and I simply tried to enjoy life without the drama that came with my parents' shadow. But obviously, just when everything was going well, something had to come and ruin it all. I finished college and moved back to my city. I found a very good, well-paying job. And then, I received a call from my mother. Yes, my mother, the same woman who hadn't spoken to me since the day they kicked me out. It was totally unexpected. I was sitting in my apartment reviewing notes for a presentation when my phone vibrated. I saw her name pop up, and for a second, I thought I was dreaming. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Should I answer? Ignore it? After everything that happened, why was she calling me now? I let it ring for a few more seconds, then against all logic, I picked up. Hello, I said, trying to sound calm, even though my heart was beating 100 miles an hour. There was a silence on the other end of the line, as if she didn't know what to say. Finally, she spoke. Hi, it's your mother. No kidding? Who else could it have been? But I didn't say it. I just remained silent, waiting for her to explain why she was calling after almost 4 years of silence. She hesitated again. Then suddenly, she said, "We need to talk." I couldn't help but chuckle. Now she wanted to talk. After all that, typical of her. But even though I was annoyed, a part of me was curious. What could possibly be important enough for her to call me after all this time? About what? I asked, keeping a neutral tone. Well, your father and I, we want to see you, she said, stumbling over her words as if she was looking for how to phrase them correctly. I already knew where this was going. They didn't really want to see me because they missed me or because they regretted throwing me out. No, they needed something, and I already had a good idea what. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. Why? I asked dryly. She didn't answer right away, which pretty much confirmed my suspicions. When she finally spoke, her voice was lower, as if she was trying to sound maternal and concerned. Your father and I, we're going through a tough time. Things haven't been easy since the pandemic. There was the real reason for the call. It was exactly what I thought, money problems. I hadn't heard much news about their business since I left, but I knew it wasn't going well. Carol had dropped a hint about it, saying their boutique wasn't doing as well as they had hoped, and with the pandemic, it made sense they were in trouble. But I wasn't going to rush to save them, not after everything they did to me. Okay, I said in a flat voice. I wasn't going to make it easy for her. Your sister, Ashley, she's handling things for us. I cut her off. Let me guess, I said, already knowing where she was going with this. Ashley screwed everything up. There was a long silence on her end, which was answer enough. Obviously, Ashley had ruined everything. I didn't see why they were surprised. She had always been more interested in appearances than real work. They had put all their trust in her, and now it had blown up in their faces. My mother let out a shaky sigh. Things didn't go as planned, she admitted. And well, we need help. I burst out laughing. I couldn't help it. After all that, after throwing me out, cutting me off, letting me get trampled by Ashley, now they wanted my help. The audacity was unimaginable. Unbelievable, I muttered through my teeth. What's funny? Asked my mother, genuinely confused as if she didn't understand why I wasn't jumping at the chance to fly to their rescue. Are you serious? You really think I'm going to help you? I said, my voice rising a notch. I felt the anger boiling up. All the emotions repressed for 4 years were coming to the surface. We are your parents, she said in a trembling voice. We made mistakes, but we need you. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. You didn't just make mistakes, Mom. You threw me out. You believed Ashley's lie over your own son. You didn't speak to me for years, and now you need me. And suddenly, I'm supposed to drop everything and come running. She remained silent. I could tell she didn't know how to respond. She probably wasn't used to seeing me stand up to her like this. When I still lived with them, I would have just nodded to keep the peace. But not anymore. I had changed, and I wasn't going to let them walk all over me again. Finally, she resumed, but her tone had changed. She wasn't trying to sound sweet and maternal anymore. This time, she sounded irritated as if she couldn't believe I was being so difficult. We're still your family, she snapped dryly. You owe us this. That was the last straw. I owed them nothing. In reality, it was they who owed me something. Apologies for starters, but I wasn't counting on that. I owe you absolutely nothing, I said icily. If you need help, go ask Ashley. She's your golden child, isn't she? Without waiting for her answer, I hung up. My heart was pounding and my hands were shaking. But I felt a strange relief. I had finally said what I had to say. They could figure out their problems themselves. I wasn't going to set foot back there. That evening, I called my Aunt Carol to tell her. She wasn't surprised at all. They've been counting on Ashley for years, she said. It was only a matter of time before it backfired on them. We talked for a while, and by the end, I was even more sure I had made the right decision. My parents had chosen Ashley over me, and now they were paying the price. As harsh as it sounds, it wasn't up to me to fix their mistakes. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I didn't need their approval or their recognition. I had my own life, and I wasn't going to let them drag me back into their toxicity. I had already done my part by surviving their betrayal. Now, it was up to them to face the consequences. Update 1. I thought I was done with all this family drama after that call with my mother. Honestly, I felt pretty good. I had finally stood my ground and clearly showed that I wouldn't be their backup plan. I thought they would let it go and continue depending on Ashley, but I had underestimated my sister's capacity to wreak havoc. Of course, Ashley wasn't going to leave me alone that easily. 2 weeks after the call with my mother, something strange happened. It was a completely ordinary Saturday afternoon. I was doing a bit of cleaning when I heard a knock at the door. I'm not used to having visitors. I live alone, and my friends always text me before coming over. So I was a bit surprised. I took a look through the peephole, and guess who was standing there? Yes, Ashley. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. Seriously, what the hell was she doing there? She hadn't spoken to me in years, except for that stupid text about my laptop, and now she was showing up as if nothing had happened. My first instinct was to ignore her, but I knew Ashley well enough to know she wouldn't budge until she got what she wanted. I opened the door, and before I even said a word, she smiled as if we were the best of friends. Hi, she said, all playful and fake. Long time no see. I stared at her for a moment, completely taken aback. Yeah, indeed. What are you doing here, Ashley? She looked at me with that sugary sweet expression, convinced she could butter me up. I wanted to talk, she said, tilting her head slightly. Can I come in? I crossed my arms, still blocking the entrance. Talk about what? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Her smile flickered for a second, but she recovered quickly. Come on, we can just chat inside. It's important. I should have said no. I should have slammed the door in her face, but my curiosity took over. I ended up stepping aside and letting her in, although I had no intention of making her comfortable. No chair, no glass of water. She was lucky I let her cross the threshold after everything she had done. She looked around, examining the apartment. Nice place, she said, as if to make small talk. I didn't answer. I wasn't there for pleasantries. All right, Ashley, I said, getting straight to the point. What do you want? She sighed theatrically as if she was already tired of her little game. Mom told me about your conversation, she said, crossing her arms. She's pretty upset, you know. I raised an eyebrow. Upset? She kicked me out, Ashley. What exactly does she have to be upset about? Ashley rolled her eyes as if I were the problem. Look, I'm not here to rehash all that. We both know you've always been difficult. I almost burst out laughing at the casualness with which she said that. Difficult, I repeated. Are you serious? You fabricated emails to get me kicked out of the house. That is being difficult. She waved her hand in a dismissive gesture. That's ancient history. I came because I want to fix things. I blinked, not sure I heard correctly. You want to fix things? I asked, every word dripping with skepticism. Yeah, she said, nodding as if it were the most reasonable idea in the world. I know things got complicated with the family, and maybe I went a little too far back then, but I think it's time to put all that behind us. I couldn't believe my ears. You think you went a little too far? I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Ashley, you destroyed my relationship with our parents. You lied about me, you manipulated them, and now you show up here as if none of that mattered. Her smile faded a bit, and I could see she was starting to get annoyed. I didn't come to argue, okay? I came because I need your help. There was the real reason for her visit. Of course, Ashley hadn't come to apologize or repair anything. She needed something from me. I felt my jaw clench as I stared at her, waiting for the rest. I'm trying to keep the business afloat, she said, finally dropping her fake sweet tone. But it's really hard. The pandemic hit us full force, and I'm doing everything I can, but it's not enough. Mom and Dad don't want to admit it, but we're on the verge of losing everything. I crossed my arms without feeling the slightest bit of compassion. So let me guess. You want me to come bail you out? Ashley squirmed uncomfortably. I'm not asking for charity, she said defensively. I just thought we could, I don't know, find a solution together. You're doing well, right? I thought you would want to help the family. I couldn't believe it. She was trying to guilt-trip me into saving the family business she had sunk herself. You were wrong, I said dryly. Ashley blinked, visibly surprised by my answer. Wait, what do you mean? I mean I won't help you, I said firmly. Not after everything you did. You ruined my life, Ashley. You turned our own parents against me. And now that you're in a jam, you think I'm going to forget all that and come running to save you? No. She stared at me, stunned. For the first time in her life, Ashley didn't seem to know what to say. But we're family, she said weakly, her voice losing its confidence. I shook my head. We stopped being a family the day you decided to make my destruction your mission. Ashley's face paled. She wasn't used to being told no, and I could see she was having trouble taking it in. After a long, awkward silence, she stood up. Fine, she said coldly. If that's how it is. That's how it is, I confirmed, standing my ground. You made your choices, Ashley. Now you have to face the consequences. Without another word, she walked out of the apartment, slamming the door behind her. I stood there for a moment, letting the tension drain away. A part of me felt guilty, as if I had been too harsh. But I remembered everything she had put me through, and that guilt evaporated quickly. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control of my life. I was no longer in Ashley's shadow. I was no longer the second choice or the scapegoat. I was finally free of all that. Update 2. I thought that after Ashley left my apartment furious, things would calm down, that she would finally understand that I was done with her and all the family drama. But of course, I had underestimated how stubborn she could be. Not even a week had passed before the next wave arrived. And this time, it wasn't Ashley knocking at my door. It was my parents. Another Saturday. It's funny how these things always seem to happen on my days off. I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone when there was a knock. It wasn't a little discreet knock either. It was one of those heavy and insistent knocks that means the person on the other side isn't leaving anytime soon. I got up, already almost certain of who it could be. And when I opened the door, there they were, my mother and father, side by side like some sort of united front. My father looked uncomfortable, as if he didn't really want to be there. But my mother, she had that look, the one that said she was determined to fix things even if it meant forcing it. I sighed, leaning against the doorframe. What do you want? My mother gave me a tight smile, undoubtedly trying to keep a cordial tone. Can we come in and talk? We need to settle some things. I was tempted to slam the door in their faces, but a part of me told myself that if I didn't let them in now, they would come back anyway. So, with an exaggerated sigh, I stepped aside and let them in. They entered, looking around as if they expected something other than a simple apartment. My father remained silent, but my mother headed straight for the couch, sat down, and patted the spot next to her as if I were a kid she was trying to reassure. "I'll stand," I said in a dry tone, arms crossed. "Okay," she said with a forced smile. "Listen, we know things have been difficult between us." "Difficult?" I repeated, raising my eyebrows. "Is that what you call it?" My father finally spoke, his voice low and grave. "We didn't come to argue." "Then why did you come?" I asked without hiding my annoyance, because we've already been over this. "Ashley tried." "You tried." And I was clear. "I won't help." My mother's smile flickered a little. She probably wasn't used to me standing up to her this way. "That's not why we're here," she said, leaning slightly forward. "We're here because we want to AITA." I almost burst out laughing. "Apologize? For what exactly? Kicking me out? Believing Ashley's lies? Or maybe the fact you didn't even check on me for 4 years?" My mother's face tightened and my father squirmed, looking uncomfortable as if he would have preferred to be anywhere else. Clearly, they didn't expect me to throw all that in their faces. "We made mistakes," admitted my mother, her voice lower now. "But we are a family, and a family must stick together." I felt my patience running out. It was always the same tune. Every time something went wrong, they pulled the family card as if that erased everything. But I wasn't going to fall for it this time. "You are here solely because you need me," I said dryly. "If the business hadn't gone into a tailspin, I wouldn't even be hearing from you. Let's not pretend this is about family." A silence settled. Then my father finally spoke, his voice sounding more honest than anything I had heard from him in years. "You're right." That took me by surprise. I blinked, staring at him. "What?" "You're right," he repeated, sighing heavily. "We screwed up. We believed Ashley. We pushed you away, and we didn't think. And now, well, now everything is collapsing. We are desperate." I didn't know what to say. I didn't expect him to actually admit it. My mother, on the other hand, looked like she was struggling to keep her cool. Ashley had clearly not planned for him to spill everything like that. "I appreciate the honesty," I said after a long silence. "But that changes nothing." My mother then intervened, her voice sharper. "That doesn't change the fact that we need you and that you owe us something after everything we did for." And there it was again, that feeling of being indebted. They really believed I owed them something simply because they were my parents. As if all those years of neglect and favoritism didn't count. And now that they were in a jam, I was supposed to save them. "I owe you absolutely nothing," I said in an icy voice. "Not after the way you treated me. You made your choice when you believed Ashley over me, when you kicked me out without even checking if I was okay. And now, you want me to save you. That's not how it works." My father said nothing. He remained seated, eyes fixed on the floor as if he was ashamed. But my mother, she hadn't said her last word. "We are your parents," she said, raising her voice. "We raised you. We took care of you, and now you're going to abandon us." I shook my head, almost feeling pity for her at that moment. "You didn't take care of me. Aunt Carol did. You chose Ashley, and now you are stuck with her. That's your problem." My mother looked about to explode, but my father put a hand on her arm, stopping her from saying what was about to slip out. He stood up and finally looked me in the eyes for the first time since their arrival. "We understand," he said. His voice was firm, but sad. "We won't insist further. We just had to try." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. But immediately, I remembered everything he had put me through, and that wave of compassion flew away. "I hope you find a solution," I said, stepping toward the door to open it. "But I won't be part of it." My father nodded as if he expected it. My mother, on the other hand, shot me a last look that was half furious, half pleading. But when she saw I wouldn't yield, she stood up and followed him. As they walked through the door, I closed it behind them and stood motionless for a moment, letting the silence settle. I had done it. I had finally stood up to my parents, and for the first time, I felt truly free. Comment: I believe true family isn't always defined by blood, but by the people who offer you safety and respect. Sometimes, the support of just one person can give you the strength to finally value yourself. Learning to set boundaries is one of the most difficult, yet most powerful, acts of self-love. You are not responsible for fixing problems other people create. It's okay to let go of people who constantly break your trust, even if you share a long history. Your peace and emotional well-being are valid priorities worth protecting. The path to healing often starts the moment you decide you deserve better. Remember to offer yourself the same compassion you so freely give to others. You have the right to build a life where you feel valued and safe. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.